This brings us back out onto the Grand Canal just in front of the DOro, and just behind us the Rialto markets. And here's a traghetto station by which one may cross the canal by gondola. The Rialto markets have been the city's centre of trade, and as such the heart of the Republic's mercantile empire since the 11th century. When Venice's first bank, the Banca Giro, was opened in the 1100s, others quickly followed, making the Rialto the medieval equivalent of Wall Street. I understand that the word banca comes from the Italian for table, banca, and indeed bankrupt comes from the Italian for broken table. So leave it, he'll be back. Europe's most glittering and powerful exchange, controlling the commercial links between East and West. Here he is, look. All the gold of the Orient passes through the hands of the Venetians, grumbled one commentator. And so it did until 1499, when news of Vasco da Gama's voyage round the Horn caused several banks to instantly fail. Those that survived saw their establishments burned to the ground in the Great Fire of 1514. And on the other side of those buildings we're looking at San Giacomo di Rialto. Fondly known as San Giacometto, it is believed that this was the first church built on the Rialto and in what is now Venice. And just behind us is Gobbo di Rialto, the 16th century granite figure of a hunchback upon whose shoulders the decrees of the Republic were read to the public. And now that world-famous Rialto bridge invites us, but we're not going to cross it on this occasion. We're going to turn right just before we get there down the Fondamenta del Vin. From here we can have a view of that new Rialto bridge, opened around 1590. The winner of the design competition was Antonio da Ponte, other entries having been received from Palladio and Michelangelo. Turning inland again down Sotto Portico Traghetto brings us to San Silvestro. Just behind us in this little square is Palazzo Valier, where Giorgione lived, and in 1510 died of the plague. In this church is said to be a painting of St. Thomas à Becket enthroned. I'm not sure which one it is. It's by Girolamo da Santa Croce, 1520. There's also a Baptism of Christ by Tintoretto. The dome was nicely painted, I thought. Veronese's The Adoration of the Kings is no longer here because it's in the National Gallery. A short walk brings us to the deconsecrated church of SantAponal. I am told it's filled with metal shelves containing all the marriage records of Venice. There's a story going round that Giorgione, who died of plague, caught it from his girlfriend who lived here. I would have thought he could have caught it from anybody, actually. And now we've got to go down here. I hope nobody comes in at the other end before I get there. And this brings us into little Campiello al Blitzi and another carefully preserved Austrian shell. Perhaps we should remember that when Napoleon had demolished the centuries-old Venetian state and pinched all the booty he fancied, including the bronze horses, he cavalierly handed Venice over to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Appropriately enough, we now have to cross Ponte delle Tette, Bridge of Nipples. This brings us into Campo San Polo, one of the biggest in Venice. Here we can find the red Palazzo Sorenzo and its neighbour the Palazzo Tiepolo. Along the front of these buildings used to run a canal which has now been filled in. In this campo, Lorenzino de' Medici, the murderer of Duke Alessandro de' Medici, was himself assassinated by two hitmen. From inside the church one may enter the oratory of the Crucifix and see Gian Domenico Tiepolo's Via Crucis series, the first 5 of which are reproduced here. He carried this commission out at the age of 20. We're getting very near now to the highlight of this particular walk, the Frari. On the way we passed the house where Carlo Goldoni was born. He was the king of Venetian comedy, as you probably know. Unfortunately the cameraman missed it. Here the Scuola dei Caligari, the school of the cobblers, and behind it Toma. And as the man said, it's as big a mystery inside as out, because it's never open. Here is the bridge and trattoria of the Honest Woman, but the story's too complicated. And here at last is the Frari, Santa Maria Gloriosa dei Frari. It was at this point that I suddenly realised that it was getting dark, that I was totally, shall we say, exhausted, and that I was only 3/4 of the way through the first of the 2 walks I was going to finish today. And this place is massive and stuffed with great works of art. But we did manage to see Titian's Assumption of the Virgin, his first public commission in Venice, 1516. Some of these others you also may recognise. And the tomb of Canova, the sculptor. And this was erected over the supposed burial place of Titian in the 19th century. Titian died at the age of 90 during the plague of 1576. He was the only victim of that plague to be given a church funeral. Also to be seen here at the Frari, the tomb of Doge Francesco Foscari, the tomb of Doge Giovanni Pesaro,